everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Mila and I'm a therapist, and today I'm going to be talking about one of the most difficult, intense, painful, horrible feelings that you can have in your life. Emotional states, feelings. And this is a feeling like no one wants you, no one needs you. There is no use for you to be in this world. There is no need, no one, and in that, when you have this is a trauma, okay? I'm going to tell you in this video about how this forms, how it feels, and what to do about it. And to begin with, I just wanted to kind of tell you about, how it's compared to loneliness and how it feels. And maybe I could tell you a little story about myself and how, I've had it for a while, and how I've realized that it was that, and how I've seen it in my patients, my clients. So basically, the way it feels is, it normally, how people describe it is feeling empty, like having this sort of like emptiness. Some people describe it as emptiness. Some people describe it as a black hole. Some people describe it as heaviness. But a lot of the times, it's an empty feeling. And it makes so much sense to, when I started studying psychoanalysis, it just made so much sense. Why do people describe it as empty? A lot of the times people say, I have nothing to stand on. I have no earth underneath my feet. It feels like I'm falling. And so on and so forth. I guess you can describe it as many different how it feels, but usually it's that kind of like really sad, empty feeling. Like, it's so debilitating. It can stop you from doing anything you were doing. It can make you feel super depressed, super low, not reach out for help. And what I realized is that for me, how it made me feel, it made me feel like I'm all alone. Like I'm all alone. Like there's no one there to help you. And the crazy thing is that there are so many people that can help you. But in that moment, you feel like you're all alone and there's no one to help you. And you never reach out for help. A lot of the times people don't reach out for help. So how does it form? Of course, it forms in childhood. It forms as, for example, when you were a baby, when you were a little child. Maybe your parents didn't have time. Maybe your parents had certain personality disorders and they couldn't attend to your needs. It forms right there in childhood when you feel like... also, I forgot to say that a lot of the times, the way it feels is you feel like you're an orphan. Related to your parents, you might feel like you're an orphan. Even if you have parents, you could say that I feel like an orphan. No one needs me. And it's really sad. And especially this feeling is prevalent in actual orphans, because when they were being raised, there was no parent, no parental figure they could rely on. So in your psyche, that person that they can rely on, it does not form. And what happens when you don't have that in your psyche, that parental figure in your psyche, is that you have nothing to rely on. You have nothing to rely on. That means you don't have that ground underneath your feet. That means you have nothing to stand on. That means the floor is shaky. That means the world is not safe. That means a lot of things. And when there's no, sometimes parents can be, they're not nurturing. They could be narcissistic. They could be dismissive avoidant. They don't acknowledge your being. They don't acknowledge your presence. And that is one of the most painful, horrible, the deepest traumas, one of the worst traumas that anyone can have. And it is so painful, that feeling. It almost, if you don't work on it, it can never go. It could never go away. You think that, oh, like, it eventually time will pass and it will heal. It doesn't. It doesn't. You can feel it even in your 50s and 60s if you don't work on it. So what are the needs that have been dismissed by your parents? The first one is the need of, it's the initial need for, that's when your sense of worthiness is formed, is when a mother sees the child and almost like a mirror reflects the child that he's there. That's why if the mother does not reflect, has no interest, turns away, is not there, that is the basic sense of self is not formed. The basic, like, the child doesn't even realize that he exists almost, because there is nothing to reflect on. Because babies, they, normally the mother reflects the child themselves, and so they realize, okay, I am, I live, I exist. When that doesn't happen, the person feels like, it's not like that I don't exist, but there's no point to existence. No one needs me. What's the point to exist? I have nothing to offer. And a lot of the times people like that, they have like a blocked, they can't find their passion. Blocked, their self-realization is blocked, because they, on a very deep level, believe that no one needs me, no one wants me, the world doesn't need me, I have nothing to offer to this world. It's one of the most, honestly, like, it's one of the most intense traumas and one of the most intense pains that you can have. The pain is real. And thankfully, like, from my experience, I've worked on that pain, on that trauma, and I can say that I don't have it anymore. Maybe there's like 10% left, but and I'm just telling you that to let you know that there is hope. And right now I'm going to start talking about, in a bit, I'm going to start talking about how do you actually, heal that. Okay, you can't get rid of it. It's there, but you can transform it. Okay, it's kind of like, that art of the Japanese art, when they take the broken plate and they put it back together using like gold and all these metals, and it looks fantastic and beautiful. And that's exactly the same thing that you can do with yourself. And so another need that's ignored by your parents, or have been ignored by your parents, is the need of belongingness. You couldn't belong to anything. The innate need of human being is to belong. And a lot of the times people are stuck feeling lonely. But see, the thing is, between loneliness and feeling like no one needs you, no one wants you, is when you're lonely and when you're alone. Okay, I'm talking the difference between when you're lonely and when you're alone. When you're lonely, you are one. When you're alone, how do I explain this? It's almost like you don't exist. You're zero. You don't exist. Either way, the sense of belongingness is broken. It hasn't been formed, and so the person will feel forever lonely. And a lot of the questions I get, how do I, fight that, and how do I fight that sense of loneliness? And oh my God, it's so interconnected. It is so interconnected. Another thing worth mentioning is emotional deprivation. So if you feel like no one wants you, no one needs you, you have also been emotionally deprived. And because your parents didn't show you that they loved and appreciated you being there, they didn't show you. A lot of the times it's emotional deprivation. And by emotional deprivation, what I mean is you're not connected with your feelings, you have been emotionally deprived, you have not been shown love and care. Therefore, your emotions might be blocked. You could suppress certain emotions. You might, a lot of the times, you're blocking anger, and you become a people pleaser. Because why do you become a people pleaser? Um, because you try and get someone's attention. Oh, and a lot of times you attract emotionally unavailable partners because you're just repeating the trauma, right? Our psyche wants to, replay that to try and heal itself. And it's like, you attract emotionally mm, not available people, and you are being a people pleaser by trying to get those crumbs of attention, trying to feel needed, like I'm needed, I'm helping people, I'm needed. But a lot of the times it leads you to a hole where you feel even more and not needed. Because you know what happens? The people around people pleasers, like really, really bad people pleasers, people around them, they can see that, people can sense that. People are animals. We're all animals. And when people sense that, a lot of the times they run away, they push away, or they manipulate. And this is how, with this trauma, you become easily to manipulate. You get even more abandoned. You get even more betrayed because subconsciously you're looking for the same scenario that you experienced in your childhood. The same, absolutely the same scenario. And oh my God, I wish I knew all this information like 10 years ago, because I've been through so much pain. I've lived through so much pain. This type of pain. And it was so it's like a child inside you screaming and shouting, like, look at me, help me, love me, and what you do in the reality is you just attract the same thing to replay the same scenario. And that child inside you is dying, you know. And I know exactly how it feels, and I wish I knew this information before. So you're lucky to be living in this time and day where content like that is available, where more and more people are starting to speak about psychology and emotional states. So now, how do we, I think I mentioned what it results in. It results, oh no, I haven't mentioned that it results in perfectionism. It results because you are trying to create the child inside of you, the child, when you were an actual child, you try and become like a little perfectionist, so you can you can be perfect for your parents so they can love you, but they won't. They don't care, you know. So you become a perfectionist. You start having an imposter syndrome. Codependent relationships, of course. Codependency here and there, everywhere, you know. Now, a codependent relationship, what I mean by that is when you meet someone and you just become like this, like you become like that. You cannot live on your own. You cannot have your own life. You have to be merged with someone to feel safe. And if you're not merged with someone else, you do not feel safe. So that creates a lot of unhealthy relationships, a lot of codependent relationships. Another one is that you feel like you can't demand other people's attention and affection. And therefore, you might have, like I said earlier, you might have problems with self-realization. You might have problems with speaking on camera, showing yourself in Instagram, like doing stories and things like that, showing yourself to the world, showing yourself to the public because you feel so unworthy. So yes, loneliness, emotional deprivation, unworthiness, it's all connected. It all kind of stems from the same childhood trauma. Yeah. By the way, if you are interested in therapy, please feel free and reach out to me, and I'm going to be more than happy to help you. All right, so how do you treat this, right? How do you actually come to the point of fixing that? Is there even a way to fix that? Can you even heal what's broken? Can you heal that emptiness? It just feels like such a dreadful feeling which is almost impossible to get rid of. And let me tell you that yes, it is possible. There is hope. And this is why I'm doing this video, because there is hope. Because there is so much hope. There are ways to treat this. And the first way to treat this is to grieve the process. Grieve to allow the pain to come in, okay? To notice the pain, to allow to live through that pain, to cry as much as you want. And you know, actually, in my life, I had that realization when everything was going to hell. Everything went to hell. No friends, no job, no, in a country where I just didn't know anyone, no family, not speaking to family, not, it was a really dark time in my life. And thank God for that. Thank God. Because if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be able to completely break in order to grieve it all. I cried maybe for 6 hours, if not more. And this is why I always tell people, whenever things are going bad in your life, it's a blessing. It's a blessing from God. I swear to God, it's a blessing. So you need to grieve that. Ideally, you have to, the process of grieving, you have to talk about this feeling. You have to, and ideally in a safe setting, with a friend who can actually, who's emotionally mature and available, who will not dismiss your feelings, who will not give you advice, who will just listen, who will listen and understand, and will tell you the words of, you know, affirmation, like affirmative words, like, you know, I understand what you're going through, I love you the way you are, etc. Right? Not many people can do that, so I would definitely recommend speaking to a therapist. You can get even more re-traumatized if you speak to an emotionally unavailable friend, or like emotionally not intelligent friend. You know, it can be even more painful. And that was a lot of the times that happened to me when I was trying to kind of like, you know, and then I would just get even more hurt in the end. So yeah. Okay, so you need to talk this through with someone that you can trust, who will listen, and that can soothe you. That can definitely soothe you. One of my most favorite things, but again, I would still suggest you to do that with a therapist, is a two-chair technique. The two-chair technique is when you sit, when you sit in a chair, and in front of you, you put another chair. And let's say whoever made you in your family made you feel that way. Let's say it was your father or mother who was like super emotionally unavailable and, you know, created that emotional deprivation. So you put that parent in front of you, because it all comes from our parents, okay? It all comes from our parents. Well, not all, but I don't know, 80%. So you put the parent, imagine the parent is there, and you talk to that parent. So let's say this is a chair, you talk to the parent. This is how I feel. You just let everything out, okay? And then you stand up and you walk to that chair and you sit on that chair and you speak from your mother, father, or I don't know, if your caregiver was like a grandma, then you speak to that grandma, okay? And then you speak from the grandma, you sit on that chair, let's say it's a grandma, and you respond from the view of the grandma, from the perspective of the grandma, as if you're the grandma. You stand up from the chair, shake it off a bit, sit back onto your chair, and continue that dialogue until you feel like it's finished and it has been, you know, it has been released. Like everything that you needed to say, it's released. Okay, great technique, love that. Use it. I use it even for myself, for my clients. I love that technique. It helps every time. Another one is releasing anger. Your anger can be blocked. You can either become really easily aggressive, or you can either become like, you completely cut it off within you. You cut that off. Like you cannot become angry. You just like just shut down, you know? So it's one or the other. It's either you're like constantly becoming angry with everyone and you can't handle your emotions, or you become or you completely shut down. So how do you express that anger? How do you work on that anger? When you work through the grieving process, that anger might you might start getting access to your anger. You might realize, huh, I'm actually really angry at my parents, and it's okay. Don't be scared of it. It's okay to be angry at your, you know, shitty parents. It's okay. And it's oftentimes they're not that shitty. It oftentimes they can just, people make mistakes, right? People make mistakes. Yeah. So uh, it's okay to be angry. That when I got access to my anger, and I was constantly suppressing it, and I was really like passive aggressive towards my mom. But when I got access to my anger, whew, the chairs were flying. I'm not saying the chairs were flying, but my words were flying. Like, oh my goodness, the things that she's been through. And that was great. I released the anger. And once you release the anger, you're free. Do you get what I mean? You're free. And slowly, slowly, that trauma, that feeling, it starts to, from this hole, it becomes slow and slow, 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 slower, not slower, smaller, 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 smaller. And if, in addition to that, another technique is when you handle your inner child. You need to be really careful with your inner child, with your baby, little baby inside of you. That even goes down even more. And you start getting like an access to who you are. You start getting access to your worthiness, your inherent self-worth. That's what starts happening. And the more you get access to your inherent self-worth, the more you feel free from trauma, from all these painful emotions. And it's such a beautiful feeling. It's like you don't need to be a victim anymore. There's no need for that because the process has been completed. Working with your inner child, there's multiple books out there and techniques and strategies how you can speak to your inner child. It might be really weird and difficult at first because you don't quite understand what inner child, like where, but you just have to imagine that there's, deep inside of you, there's this inner child who seeks all that support, is like really wounded and really hurt, and is seeking that support from you. And now you're a grown up, but a lot of the times what happens when this trauma happens to you, neglect, abuse, etc., you start feeling, you become a victim, and you start reacting all the time. And you know who reacts? The child inside of you reacts. But you need to, by healing your inner child, you're able to grow up as an adult. Your adult grows up. Your adult self becomes stronger. So your adult can handle all these crazy things that happen in the world that can happen to you. It's a beautiful process. I've seen people become from infantile go to very responsible adults. That infantility, it just evaporates. When you will work on all of these things, and when you will do all these little things to help yourself, eventually you will start realizing that you will start seeing that people need you. You will start attracting people who are interested in you. You will start attracting people who care about you, and not just paying attention to the ones who were dismissive, ignoring, and etc., etc. Because now there becomes a shift in your psyche. That all of a sudden you realize that this whole time you've just been paying attention to the ones who've been ignoring you and treating you like that. But when that happens, you shift your attention to, and you start seeing that people actually need you, people want you, people like you, people want to be around you, people want to be with you. And it's a beautiful feeling. It's almost like the world starts, from dark and gray. Whoops. It turns into this rainbow of colors and your emotion, and you start feeling all these emotions, and now you're able to joke, and now you're able to make a lot of jokes, and now you realize that the world is a happy place and can be a safe and happy place. And that's what happens when you heal your trauma. It's a beautiful thing. But to heal it, you have to go through a lot of pain again. And that's what people don't want to do, unfortunately. But if you're watching that video, it's very likely that it's very likely that you're trying to understand what is happening with you. You're trying to take the first steps, and I applaud you for that. I respect you for that. And I really hope that you can take things further. And you feel free to follow me on Instagram, like that video, and comment below. On my Instagram, I try and share a lot of books that helped me personally, that can help you. I should be making a video sometime soon about all these books that will really help anyone with trauma. And I share a lot of tips, personal stories. So yeah, follow me on YouTube, and let me know your story. I would love to hear everyone's stories. So thank you for watching this video, and I hope it was helpful, and I'll see you in that video.